barbell deadlifts, barbell squats, overhead press, lat pull down, chest press. And when you're ready to stop, repeat. That's how we climb Olympia. When you push that extra rep, when you pull another set, when you lift that one last rep, you will climb the mountain and no one will forget. Bring on the build with the NASM Physique and Bodybuilding Coach Program.
You're listening to Random Fit with hosts Wendy Batts and Ken Miller, winner of a Gold Markham Award for Digital Media.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Random Fit. I am Wendy Batts here with my friend and co-host, Mr. Ken Miller. Ken, how are you?
I am awesome, Wendy, this beautiful morning. How are you?
I am doing great, and I'm really excited about today's topic. I say that every week, I know, but this week we are actually talking about Ken and I's experience to Dubai. We had the unbelievable opportunity to be able to speak and present on the 18th edition of the annual MEFIT Health and Fitness Summit that was powered by the National Academy of Sports Medicine and organized by MEFIT Pro. So, tell me all about your experience, Ken, start to finish.
Well, I'll say that last year I was out there, and my experience out there with the trainers and the enthusiasm that personal trainers have out there, as I saw last year, was great. It was awesome. These guys are thirsty for more information on how to help their clientele, and I'll tell you, this year I saw it magnified 100 times. So to walk into a conference area, any conference, whether it be here in the US or there in Dubai, to actually walk into, and you saw it, Wendy, the hallways were full. The presentation rooms were jam-packed, which was just a testament, again, confirming what I saw last year as far as the enthusiasm and the thirst for knowledge that these trainers were looking for, and just the attendance was just great. And that was from the second you walked into the conference. So I was really happy to see that, last year wasn't just a fluke. And then this year to see is, literally 100 times more people than I saw last year for this educational event. So it was awesome. It was great. No other word.
And you know what? One of the things that, we had the opportunity to actually work with Rania and Greg, and they are the ones that organize and are part of MEFIT Pro, and they own that. And so getting to meet them, learning more about how they put these conferences together, how they spread the knowledge and the education, and they had over 20 international and local speakers. There was 20 different partners that were a part of this thing. There were 60 sessions. And to your point, Ken, there was over 1,000, I think it was 1,700, I think was the final total that I heard. But I know it was definitely over 1,000 actual attendees that signed in and said they were there for these presentations. And a big thing that we kept hearing over and over again was everybody just wanted to be together. And, and then when you're with like-minded people, it makes it that much more fun. Everyone was like, hey, during COVID and all this, all the things that happened, and they were stuck at home, they learned a lot of new things, and everyone, especially on the presentation side, I was loving getting back on stage and actually being able to present. So it was super fun. Yeah.
But for those of us that are just joining us here on Random Fit and listening to both Wendy Batts and I and our experience in Dubai just a week ago. I mean, it feels like it was more than that now. But the thing about traveling international, Wendy, is that, for one, we have an opportunity to talk to trainers in different regions of the world, different cultures, but being able to take the information and translate it to how can I help my client, how can I help my patients, some of the cases. It was awesome, right? But part of me, Wendy, was when we got there. Well, I got there a little bit later than you. So by the time I got to the hotel, which was about 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock that night, and then to present or be in front of people at 8 o'clock in the morning, part of me was like, okay, how much of this is real and how much of this is because I'm working off of 2 hours of sleep off of a 15.5-hour flight? But either way, after day 2, it was okay. It was more about getting to know them and realizing that everybody, no matter where you are, if you're a personal trainer, you're there to get more tools to put in your toolbox to help your clients do what they want to do better.
Yeah, and I think it's important too, when you get to go to or get the opportunity to go to a live event. I mean, guys, it was something, I think too, for me personally, I get to connect with so many different individuals and I get to meet so many new people that I would have never been able to have the experience of getting to know without going in and networking and learning about other people's, what is their niche? What is the thing that made them, who they are today? And I know, when they asked us if we wanted to present, I mean, yes, it was partnered with NASM, and Ken and I got the opportunity to literally speak for multiple topics and multiple sessions. And, it was a lot of work, but, really seeing the aha moment, because in Dubai and what I experienced was, they have a lot of really good educators and they teach them a lot about form and technique, but they didn't really have a system. And so for us to go out there and introduce the NASM OPT model and see so many like, oh, I get it now. Like, here's where someone starts, and this is how we identify maybe some dysfunction. And then this is how we can allow any client to hit any goal. It was something that I felt was very special because more and more people, I mean, Ken, you saw it the very first, I was the opener. So I did the first session about just our OPT model, which again, for those of you guys that are new to NASM, we have this 5-phase model that really, it's a progressive system to help clients get to, become stable, work on proper movement patterns and mechanics, and then we get them into strength, and then we can build power. So we make sure that it's done very safely. And it was like, oh, wait, this is what this is. And then all of a sudden our sessions grew to the point where, I mean, like when you did shoulder, it was completely sold out, completely. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was funny because, I think it was like 2 hours before that, corrective exercise strategy for the shoulder was the topic. And a couple hours before they were asking me, it's like, do you need all these chairs? I'm like, well, where are they going to sit? It's like, well, we have a lot of people that now especially after your presentation, Wendy, you built up the case for, okay, stability, strength, and power. And then of course, when it comes to corrective exercise, I mean, here in the US, a lot of people experience shoulder issues. And I think as soon as people started to understand, okay, what the optimum performance training model is as it's delivered with the National Academy of Sports Medicine, and then they realized, oh, okay, there is a progression, there is a system, there is a style and format of training that can get somebody to move better with less stress on the joints. And when it came to the shoulder, they're like, okay, well, now I can translate that to this particular region of the body. And I was actually talking to somebody about that when they went through your presentation, and then they were wondering about what the shoulder was, and they say, well, whatever Wendy talked about with that model, this is what we're going to talk about during my section. And as soon as they started, like you said, Wendy, once they started to get the aha moments and started to realize like, oh, it's more than just doing a neck stretch or doing the rehab exercise that my physio taught me a couple years ago. There's something that I can do for myself that I can self-manage when my shoulder isn't feeling well. So we initially had, I think, 100 or 110 people registered for that my presentation, and then we wound up letting 200 or 200 plus attendees attend that workshop because of the topic and because it was in such high demand. So, when we talk about this information and what you talked about, Wendy, with the last couple of years, a lot of trainers out there had just been learning virtual, right? They didn't really have access to live seminars, live workshops, although this year, 2022, it's come back and people are getting out there and they are going and they're traveling and they're attending live conferences and they are networking and they are seeing live presenters, just because when it comes to personal training, there is no replacement for the hands-on component. There is no replacement for the practical side of learning to do an exercise correctly. You can learn the anatomy, you can learn the biomechanics, you can learn the exercise physiology, but how many opportunities you have to actually go through with other people, like you said, Wendy, like-minded trainers that want to learn the same thing, and then to get feedback from the author themselves or the presenter themselves, those that actually teach the information live, like you and I do, Wendy, and actually feel what it's like to do an exercise correctly. And when that presentation came up, by the end of it, it was like, wow, that was a huge group. And, I got a lot of, handshakes and a lot of thank yous afterward from the fact that, it's been a while since a lot of these people have, or myself, actually shook hands with an attendee or somebody that, that's in my workshop or presentation. And, of course, I have a client who has this, or is this going to work for a client that has that situation? So it was really good to get back to that stage when it comes to, educating and not just being in front of a camera.
Yeah, I mean, there was a session that I did. Again, Ken and I are talking about these different sessions. So I opened up and I talked about the OPT model. And then Ken and I actually co-taught a session about assessments. And, again, it was letting people know that you have to have a starting point in order to truly build a program. And so I think we had a really good turnout. We had a lot of really positive feedback, because with that information, with NASM, we're able to provide a solution. And that was something that I feel like a lot of people were missing, or they're still learning their anatomy and trying to figure out the right moves. However, the session that I taught after that one was a core session. It's called Let's Get to the Center of It. And, literally teaching these trainers about core work, that it's more than just the abs and more than just, doing crunches, if you will. And so we were showing, and we actually did some demonstrations and hands-on work and putting them through different stages of core, from stabilization all the way to power. But my favorite moment, I think, during that particular session was when, everyone knows how to do planks and everyone knows how to do different variations of that. But, kind of hey, this is what you need to look for, drawing in, with your stomach, squeezing your glutes, maintaining proper alignment, doing it for reps versus time, and then showing the different planes of motion. And then once we started to do one on strength, I said, okay, now what I want you guys to do is immediately go into just a full sit-up. And you were there, Ken.
Yeah.
I mean, we had people.
Yeah.
So in this, and these are trainers. These are trainers, but because they don't normally, they just do crunches. And you've got to think of activities of daily living. I wanted them to actually sit all the way up. Like, could you sit up out of bed without using your hands? Can you sit up to go and do things that you need to be able to do? Because we always talk about you get what you train for, and they couldn't do it. And so it was like, wait, what? And so that's when, to me, it was a big chuckle, because I'm like, listen, guys, you guys are the best in your industry, but we have to really look at what people need. And so I think it was really good for us to see and be able to provide that type of education, because sometimes we get so stuck in our ways and stuck with our specific exercises that we do all the time, that when you open up your eyes to what do people need to move and live correctly, I think to me, that was probably the most special moment out of all the sessions that I did, because it was like, I got you. And then after that, they followed us everywhere we went. It was phenomenal.
Well, of course, Wendy, you picked the biggest guy in the audience. When I say the biggest guy, this guy was big shoulders, big chest. I mean, he definitely didn't miss a workout. But that was actually a very, very memorable moment for me as well. Just because, not just because you had these trainers that can't, that were having trouble doing sit-ups. Because here's the thing: I remember a few years ago watching another presenter, and it was funny because he was having them do sit-ups because, just for all the same reasons that you had, expressed just now, Wendy, but because they had trained just in partial spinal flexion, that's just getting the shoulders, the upper spine off the ground, and not focusing on getting up all the way. Or the other side of that coin is the fact that when they do sit-ups, their feet are anchored, so they have that assistance as far as getting up. So they're using a lot of hip flexors on top of the abs. So there was a couple things in play. One, they just didn't train sit-ups. Or two, when they did sit-ups, their feet were always anchored, right? Mm-hmm. So when you had, I don't know, what was it, like 10, 12 of them just trying to do sit-ups, and a lot of them can do it without their hands reaching forward or their legs, reaching out, or they're kind of now rocking up. But after that, it was the fact that because it was a core, a topic on core training, a lot of them were just like, oh, that makes more sense, as far as, okay, how do you train, the deeper stabilizers to control the spine? And then there's a progression to flex and extend and rotate the spine, where I think a lot of them realized, as we do here in the US. So it's not a knock on the trainers that were in attendance, because if you saw these people, a lot of them definitely work out on the daily. But a lot of them just now realize, because I was watching the audience, Wendy, when you were presenting, and they were just, eyes were fixed. They were listening and hanging on every word, from the standpoint, it's like, oh, and again, we could say this just as much about trainers here in the United States as we did in that particular audience, is the fact that, okay, maybe my approach has been limited. Maybe I do need to take another tack on how I look at the body, and how we need to consider what the body needs first before we progress it from one level to the next. And when we talk about aha moments and light bulbs going off, you definitely had your share of it during that session. And again, this is what happens when you go from a digital consumption of education and now going into a live presentation and actually trying things out. Because I know for me, if I'm watching a video and watching an educator, somebody teach me something, whether it's shoulder or core or corrective exercise, I don't get on the ground and then start doing the exercises that I'm watching, right? But in a live presentation, especially in our industry in fitness, for those of you that aren't familiar with fitness-based conferences, is that if you have a chance to do a hands-on, or what they might call practical workshop, those are the ones to go to. Those are the ones where you actually touch and feel and have a physical experience when it comes to applying this information. Because for us as personal trainers, this is what we have to put our clients through. And one of the things that I always say is, you don't want to do something, or you don't want to have your clients do something that you haven't done yourself. And it's these venues that you have an opportunity to experience it, because by the time you tell your client to do what you just learned that weekend, you can actually tell them and coach them firsthand.
Yeah. And this is another funny thing. So in the very beginning, we introduce ourselves obviously as Wendy, and then Ken says he's Ken. And when we're going through this, and, again, kind of going in the order that I did, the assessments and the overview, the assessments, and we did core. I did one, it was cardio for the anti-cardio client, and it was very hands-on. And it was showing that there are so many different ways to increase someone's heart rate and be very creative and do these metabolic or cardio blasts, if you will, with a particular type of programming, but then also making sure that it's progressive. And so I had a majority of the class was like, I'm in, let's do this. And so we cleared out the room. We made sure that there was plenty of room for everyone to join in. And, having someone start from something as basic as like a jumping jack, and then showing the progressions about, going from a mountain climber into a burpee because of the different elevation changes of somebody and what that can do to their heart, as well as, making sure everything stayed perfect alignment, or in a perfect alignment. Well, then we started showing more on the power side and what we could do. And so I had 4 individuals volunteer to come up, and I had them do my typical leg circuits. I had them do those, and it was amazing to see how much fun and how much cheering people were doing for these individuals, and everyone was rooting for everyone. And it was, it was very high intensity. I was loud. I was obnoxious. We're running around. It was getting everyone into it. And to me, it just like, that's what my joy is. I love to teach and just to teach. And I like the content, but being able to really dive in and show the stuff and jump around and show what we're looking for and teach perfect mechanics. Like I thought people really enjoyed that one. I got a lot of feedback, but I went from Wendy to coach after that one section. It was like, okay, coach, now teach me this. And I'm like, all right. But it's amazing how you get these different individuals. And it was a lot of the male attendees that were like, okay, you're no longer Wendy, you're my coach. And I've been getting a ton of feedback ever since. And those of you guys that are joining Ken Miller and myself, Wendy Batts, on Random Fit today, we're talking about our experience at the MEFIT as a 2022 summit that was held in Dubai. And, just talking through some of my presentations and, just seeing, like you said, it was just being together. I think that to me was more, that made my trip, because again, I did get to meet a lot of people. I mean, we got to meet Pete Cohen. Pete was amazing. He's very well known. He's an established author, has written many books, and there we go. And so, he wrote one that's called, there you go, Shut the Duck Up. It's by him and Bobby Capuccio, who is also another master instructor in the past that taught Ken and I a ton of stuff. And, we got to meet people from Australia. There was a guy named Ben who, just got his pro card. He's a bodybuilder, and he was phenomenal, from Australia. Of course, every girl loves his accent, but he was able to fill up the room and teach a lot about different types of diet. And it's not about just lifting heavy. And, and so there was just a lot of really amazing presenters. And, I hope to get invited back again. It was one of those experiences where we worked so much, y'all. Like, we really worked, literally, from sun up to sundown, where we didn't get to see Dubai until literally 3 hours before my flight. We had Rania and Greg basically put us out on a boat. They showed us the architecture. There was a big fireworks show. I said it was mainly because I was there.
Yeah. Just they knew you were on the water, Wendy. So
they knew I was there.
Hey, while she's here.
Wow, she's here.
And I think there was a harvest moon that night or something like that.
Yes,
but well, I just read that on my way home. It's like, oh, that's why the sun was, or the moon is looking the way it was. But yeah, I mean, I think what we all need to understand, if you're listening to Random Fit, and especially for our partners and the trainers out there, I mean, because Wendy, I don't know how many people came up to you and actually said, I listened to you and Ken, because a couple of them came up to me, it's like, I listen to you and Wendy every week. And we saw a little bit of that in Germany and got some of that in Dubai, and it was just like, wow. I mean, so what I tell people, as soon as I got back, they're like, how was it? It's like, the more I go out there, the more I realize how small this world is. So, you mentioned Pete Cohen and the fact that he wrote a book with our friend Bobby Capuccio. Is like, I had no idea that Bobby wrote a book, right? Let alone, we met the guy he wrote a book with. And, so the world's getting smaller and smaller. And the fact that, you mentioned Ben from Australia. We met a couple of our partners, a couple of MEFIT partners from South Africa, and met trainers from Kuwait. So, and then other parts of that region. So it was one of those things where it's kind of surreal in the fact that you talk to one person, they're from one country, and you talk to another person and they're from another country. It just made me realize, like, okay, we're really spoiled by being able to speak English because everybody can communicate in English, but then, they turn around and they're speaking another language to somebody else. Yeah. So I need to bump up my language game.
I tried, and then they told me, just stick with English, girl. Like, you don't even. They told me that in Germany too. So I don't know how I'd feel about it.
So if you're listening, Wendy likes to pick people up from the crowd, right? It's like, hey, why don't you come up and do this exercise?
Please don't.
And the guy, great guy, and he's a good sport about it. But Wendy, as she always does, she goes, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Sharif," and she's like, "What was that again?" Sharif. So his name is Sharif. So if you're from the States, it's Sharif, but he was a Frenchman, and he just had a very deep French accent when he said Sharif. So it's like, all right, okay, go ahead and get on the ground.
I couldn't do it.
Okay,
I
here's
could
what we're
not
gonna do.
I'm like, Sharif? Like, and he was like, and then he kept repeating it. I was like, okay, perfect. Thanks for coming
Yeah.
up. You
Go
know,
ahead and get
because
down. All right.
yeah, when I tried, he was like, no. And then luckily after that, the two other individuals that raised their
Yeah.
hand to volunteer, it was Mohammed and Mohammed. I'm like, dude,
Yeah,
I got you. I
heard
got you. This one I got.
I got that. I heard Muhammad. All right.
Oh my goodness. It was, yeah. So I definitely need, that is something that I definitely need to work on, is my ability to pronounce people's names and with very strong accents. So, but Ken, I mean, again, I know we could talk about our sessions forever, and you know, you had some incredible sessions on balance, of course, all of the stuff talking about our NASM performance enhancement and sports type, phase of training that we do, bringing in and connecting corrective exercise into our model. I know, you got some amazing feedback, and, we just wanted to come on today and say thank you to our partners, and let you guys know that, our experiences with you and the ability to meet everyone worldwide is something that Ken and I do not take lightly. We love to grow the partnerships. We love to grow the NASM brand, of course. But to me, like, there's nothing more that I can say other than thank you. And, I hope to continue to travel international, because it's like when we first started with NASM domestically and the model was so new.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you guys have listened to anything that we talked about in Optima, I've been with the model before it was even put into NASM. And so when teaching people in the States and about something that I'm very passionate about, now the States know about NASM. I mean, we're still the gold standard in all personal training and in all of these clubs. And now being able to take that abroad and really spreading that now, outside of the United States, it brings me back from 20 years ago. And it's like, it relit my fire to say, you know what, I want to do this all over again, because I know that it works. I believe in the system. And it was an unbelievable experience.
It was. And again, I had the opportunity to have been out there in that region last year. And like, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, it was tenfold that much more, I guess, invigorating to see that, okay, that wasn't a fluke. They were excited then, they're more excited now, but now they are excited basically with over 1,000 people, right? So I think that, as we grow and expand, and as things are opening up and people are traveling more, and these conferences are being produced, are being promoted, and you're a trainer, and if you're listening to us, or if you're not a trainer but you're wanting more information on what we are talking about, and there's only one way to find out, because the energy is palpable, and to look in someone's eyes and to know that there is somebody out there that's looking to gain the same base of knowledge that you are, that's what our industry is about. That's what personal training, performance, and anybody who wants to help their clients or patients move better and empower their clientele to basically just, okay, here's how you get better, and I'm going to be the person who takes you through and gives you this information. So for those trainers that are out there to get that information and going to these live workshops, again, as you're saying, Wendy, that's what keeps me going. That's what makes me want to spend 31 hours on a plane round trip, right? But definitely,
you had a direct flight, fool. Come on now.
I did, and it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt that I brought, man, half of my carry-on luggage is actually recovery tools. So I've got my Volt, I've got my Normatec Go, I've got my Calm. I've got 15 hours one way, right? But I don't have the opportunity. So the advantage of having a layover somewhere is you can get up, stand around, walk around the airport, all that stuff. If you got a direct flight, again, everything has its advantages and disadvantages. You've got to find a way to move. right? And you got to find a way to keep that blood flowing. So I'll tell you what, for our partners in Hyper Ice, that go, Normatec, the Volt, man, that's I wasn't as crushed when I got there, and I wasn't as crushed when I got home from sitting down for that long of a trip. But Wendy, I tell you what, everything in between, from flying there and flying back, everything in between, spending as much time as I had with you, because a lot of people don't realize we don't see each other. So Wendy's in Atlanta, I'm here on the West Coast. The only times we really see each other is when we're recording this podcast. So to actually see you teach, present, and be amongst your people, in these workshops is just, it's always good to see other presenters. So presenters need to watch other presenters. Right. So we need to learn too. And that's one thing that we were kept saying as far as being with trainers. It's also being with other presenters and seeing what else is out there and seeing their experiences and actually hearing firsthand what they have to teach. Because, we have to learn too. And a lot of people don't realize that as presenters and teachers of information, we need to keep, sharpening the saw, if you will. So, yeah. Wendy, that was a great week, in preparation and actually being there and actually to see Greg and Rania and all their staff, their team of people, the support. Yeah, we can't praise them. We should have brought them up, Leo and everybody else. The fact that, a lot of that took a lot of people to put together. And I think I can speak on behalf of the National Academy of Sports Medicine that, when I say that, to have partners like MEFIT Pro, we couldn't have been in better hands to be in that part of the world to represent, the information that we had to teach. And they are definitely the vehicle to get that information out there, yes, to say the least.
Yes, putting it lightly. I mean, it went off without any issues. And if they had issues, we didn't know about it. It was perfectly exactly organized. Yes. So thank you guys for Rania and everyone at MEFIT Pro for everything. So it was phenomenal. And Ken, as always, thank you for, having my back, being my demo, helping out when I was presenting. And it's always good to see you.
Yeah. I can say the same for you. Thanks, man. All right, Wendy. I can't wait till our next trip, whenever that may be. But for everybody here, yeah. What was that?
Yeah, it's in a month.
Oh man, yeah, you're right. It's coming up, so we'll have another podcast on that trip. But hey, I want to say that we'll save some of that stories for that recording. But hey, for everybody that's listening to us, both Wendy Batts and I, Ken Miller, here on Random Fit on this episode of our experience in Dubai. If you like what you heard in this episode and anything else you'd like to hear, reach out, let us know, especially if you're a new listener from our trip in Dubai and you just happen to say, okay, what's Ken and Wendy up to? You listening to us here on Random Fit? Email, follow us, follow, subscribe, share, all of that. Let us know what you want to hear about, and we'll do the best we can to deliver the information you want to know more about when it comes to random fitness. So until next time, take care and be well.